Perfect. Sailing passionate and friend of the America's Cup. This is another appointment with Zerogradinord. I have some incredible guests here with me, and the guest of today is Terry Hutchinson from American Magic. Hi, Terry, and many thanks to be on Zerogradinord for this interview.
Well, thank you, and it's great to be here. It's good to see you.
Yeah. What about the time that you are spending in the US with the lockdown? Did you had some problem with the team? Are you sailing? What about the situation?
So when the events in Cagliari and Portsmouth were canceled, we got Defiant back into a ready-to-sail state and basically assessed the situation week to week. Florida, the state of Florida went into a lockdown situation. And really for us, we had permission to sail, and we were in a situation that we could have sailed, and really just assessed the risk reward of taking the boat off the dock and choosing whether or not we were going to put ourselves in that position. And we took a conservative approach with the understanding that, you know, we had to make sure that we maintained the safety of the community that we were living in Pensacola, and also to make sure that we maintain the safety of our team members and our you know, wider sailing community that we were working in there. So it's not easy, especially when you look back and you know that Pensacola Bay had delivered up probably 6 great weeks of sailing that we could have taken advantage of. And yet you don't know the other side. You don't know if we'd gone sailing, if somebody had gotten ill, or even worse. You know, you can, in the year of 2020, you can do everything differently in hindsight, but I'm confident that what we did was the right thing, not only for our team, but for the Pensacola community that we were living in.
And I can make some compliment to you for your shirt. As you know, we are linked by the Eli Hansen
yes, I was
logo.
just getting ready to say we're very proud of our Helly Hansen relationship. They've done great work for us, and you know, we're fortunate to have them part of our team.
Going inside of the question that I've prepared for you, the first one. It's regarding the spirit of the America's Cup and the innovation that is all the time leading an America's Cup campaign. Each America's Cup brings with it a lot of innovation, but these editions seems to make a distinct difference from the others. You have a lot of experience concerning the America's Cup affair, and in this edition, for any reason, is more fascinating than the others?
That's a great question. I since the beginning of our program with American Magic, we've been solely focused on the mentality of, you know, making sure that we put together the proper team that has the skill set and the team dynamic that can help us win the regatta. The boat is quite fascinating, and I would venture to say it is sitting here probably one of the world's most complicated monohulls because of the systems that go inside the boat, and because of the discipline that it takes to sail the boat properly. And I think, you know, we've all seen great videos of all the teams having their own respective issues, be it a large leap out of the water or a capsize, or, you know, and having been on the boat as you experience some of those unique situations, it's quite daunting. The boat itself, as you get better and better at sailing it and learning it, you quickly realize that all the basic skill sets that we talk about in trimming the sails and setting up the sails, they all apply. And yet you have this evolution of understanding how much mass rotation to have with how much sheet tension and how much load you have going throughout the boat at excessively high speeds. And so in that regard, it's a lot of fun. The platform itself is much less stable than what the catamaran was. And even though my AC-72 experience on the catamaran was somewhat limited. When you're on this boat, you feel the tenderness of the boat, and in that regard, it's quite exciting.
You were talking about the boat speed,
Yeah.
going inside of some theoretical data. What about the maximum speed can NEC 75 achieves?
I think the boat itself is going to, I think you'll sail into 50 knots. When you're racing, certainly through the barrowways and in the conditions, as the teams get better and better, as the equipment and the foils get better and better, you'll easily go into 50 knots of boat speed. When you're sailing along in a straight line, upwind, mid 30s, downwind, mid 40s will be reasonable numbers.
And when you started your journey inside of the America's Cup, did you think that one day you would end up flying on the water?
No, no, not at all. Yeah, no, definitely not.
This cup introduced radical different concepts if compared to the past. How did your past experience help you dealing with the new concepts of this edition?
Well, we've been incredibly fortunate to have boat team partners and the design team that they've assembled. And when I think about the context of your question, it's very simple. We rely on Marcelino and our designers to design what they think we should have. The sailors with experience and the technicians with experiences from the 2017 and the 2013 Cup comment and give their thoughts. And together we come up with this incredible flying machine. So in that regard, I think that we have a lot of trust in Marcelino and the guys that have designed all this equipment for us. And from there, you put it into Dean's and Goody's and Andrew's hands and allow them to do their jobs. And it doesn't feel, even though we're doing something that we haven't ever really done before, it doesn't feel all that unnatural as it does getting onto a TP52. It all seems very similar, except for the speeds. And so in that regard, we followed the same type of process.
How important was the use of the mule, the laboratory boat that you used at the beginning of 2019 on the development of your concept?
The mule was very important. When I reflect back, the time that we've had in that boat has been instrumental. And as we sit here in a downtime, one of the few things that comforts me is the 11 months that we had sailing the mule, because it allowed us the opportunity to get into the AC-75 and straight away not be intimidated by the boat. It also allowed us concept development through some of the sails and also with the foils. And so in that regard, it really helped accelerate our program in a lot of different ways, because we were a group of people that were coming together under a new umbrella. It was really an opportunity for us to learn each other's skill sets, our strengths and weaknesses, and then from there also start proving the concept of the AC-75 in a 50% scaled down version.
In mid-September, American Magic launched Defiant, the first your first AC-75. After 7 months of test and development, are you happy with your first work, and do you think that you can improve significantly with the second boat?
Well, I'm happy to the extent that along the way over the last 7 months, we've made a lot of mistakes. We've learned a lot of things systems wise and areas of development in the boat that will go into boat 2 and will make us better as we go forward. I think in that regard, that's Defiant was always going to be that learning platform. We've taken more steps forward by going backwards in a lot of different areas. And so, the building on that experience, I know for certain that boat 2 will be a better boat than Defiant, by the fact that we've had days developing and learning the AC-75. And I would also say that when you look at the competition, when you look at Luna Rosa's boat and Team New Zealand's boat, we're gonna have to take necessary steps forward, big steps forward, to be competitive against those two teams.
Have you the name of the second boat, or you have still to think about that?
No, we have a name. But
we will discover it.
Maybe in October we'll discover it.
I wait until October.
Yes, thank you.
And in an America's Cup campaign, it's mandatory to spend as much time as you can in the water. How are you organizing in the American Magic? How many hours per week are you spending on the water?
We were probably sitting here. We have 40 days in our AC-75, and of those 40 days, I would say 25 of them, the boat told us when we had to come back to the dock, not the sailors. And so when you think about it in that crossover of time, you never want the boat to tell you when you have to come back to the dock because something's failed or you've broken something. And so, I'm not sure that's the exact ratio, but you're always working towards developing reliability. And, for us, if we, towards the end of our sessions, knowing that we had to sail 4 days in a row in Cagliari and that we were going to do these events, we basically, the last 3 weeks, we sailed 4 out of every 6 days. And, be it with the boat in perfect working order or not, because we knew we were going to have to go and race. And so in that way, it was quite beneficial. It's quite hard. The boat's physically demanding, getting the boat in and out of the water. If we go sailing at 10 o'clock, if we're off the dock at 10 o'clock, the team's there at 6:30 to prepare the boat to go yachting, and the day doesn't end when you come ashore. So very quickly, you have to manage the pace of the team. But time is the number one commodity in this America's Cup. And sitting here, you can see the tunnel getting very narrow in time. And so we know we have a lot of work in front of us. It'll be a tricky last 10 months to manage the pace of the program.
If the cancellation of the event playing in Cagliari and in Portsmouth took away the chance, the possibility of an early confrontation with your opponents, on the other end, it broke the cup back at last for a few months to its classic formula, the one in which the observation of the opponent represents an important part of the game. From what do you have perceived up to now, how do you think you are positioned compared with the others?
That's a great question. When I look over the fence, I look, in particular, I think the Luna Rosa boat is very nice. It's very aerodynamically friendly, as is the Team New Zealand boat. Our boat and the Ineos boat had a similar mindset of stability and just, purely a time component that, there she is. Purely a time component that, actually, when you look at that picture there, there was some thought given to sailing in displacement mode, but this is where the boats are their happiest. And so, I think that Defiant has served a really, really good purpose for us. And it's been an unbelievable tool for us to develop and to conceive boat 2. I think that we were towards the end by the middle of February and the end of February, we were doing, basically race days where we were going out to do 2 races a day with practice starts, and we were getting very comfortable with racing the boat around a 25-minute race course in a successful flight time. So in that regard, we were feeling pretty good. But I would also say that I think the Team New Zealand boat and the Luna Rosa boat were quite nice packages, and so it was going to be interesting to see where our design concept met their design concepts. because right now it's all just proven in science and in a VPP. So, the proof is always in the eye.
I was reading a lot about the importance of the foils, and it seems that in this phase the game is playing on this aspect. How do you judge your work on this, and which is the team that interested you most?
What's interesting to see is that the Luna Rossa design foils were very small, and the Team New Zealand design foils were very big. And we saw a fair amount of video of Team New Zealand being quite successful at doing maneuvers, especially downrange, and so that's interesting. And it's interesting to see how well Luna Rossa maneuvers on their foils. And so the balance of straight line performance versus foiling through your maneuvers is what's going to win this regatta, and having the ability to have the least amount of drag possible and yet also be maneuverable, and that's the trade-off. And so watching those and learning as much as we can, and also understanding what we have on our boat, it's they're all very critical pieces to the puzzle. So we're all on version 1 of our foils, and that things will change, and how you address those problems will ultimately determine the success of your boat around the race course.
I read that you were struck by the fact that Luna Rossa is testing a solution without the boom. Do you think that it could be a concept to develop?
Well, like everything, we all choose our poison, and I guess we're going to find out who's right and who's wrong. It's very unnerving, because I know we have a lot of respect for the people inside their team. And so when you see them doing something different, you have to think about it, and you have to trust what you've done, but also consider what they're doing.
Compared to the past, how much and when, in which moment of sailing, does the shape of the hull count?
I think here at the speeds that we're going, it counts a lot. The aerodynamics of the hull are obviously a big feature to the whole package. And in a very small way, when you look at go to a foiling moth and you look at the evolutions of the Exocet or the new beaker boats, I mean, they're very aerodynamically friendly. And here, that's a great shot. We obviously work very hard on creating an appealing hull and surface to the wind, because anything that stands out as drag is going to slow us down.
And what about the feeling while you are flying on the water?
Yeah.
Do you feel the speed, or at the end it's a smooth sailing?
At the top speeds, it feels like a plane going down the runway. The boat's shaking. You can feel the boat running into the cavitation of the foil. On the 75, the sense of speed isn't nearly what it was on the Mule. On the Mule, when you were going 40 knots on the Mule, you knew you were going fast. You could feel it. On the 75, it's not nearly as prevalent from the grinding position, just simply because you're lower and you're not up in the wind.
To go in the cup, what is the main focus of sailor on designer in this campaign? The acceleration, the ability to fly before the opponents, the speed during the maneuver, or what else?
I think all of the above of what you just said. I think the boat's ability to get out of the water and be fast once it's up and out of the water is critical. This America's Cup, as we saw with the clever thinking in 2017, it's very design driven, as all America's Cups have been. It's a design driven contest, and the fastest boat's going to win. The components of what makes boat speed, speed versus maneuverability, is a critical driver to a lot of our decision making.
In addition to the forward force, the new AC-75, in order to fly, must be able to develop considerable vertical force.
Mm-hmm.
How is the Defiant relationship with that letter?
So I'm trying to understand your question. So the sail program versus the foil program? Is that what you mean?
You know, both usually the most important thing is to achieve some big speed. But I think that right now, as a sailing journalist, I think that is the force to go flying as soon as you can. So are you happy about the time and the minimum speed that you need to go flying with your boat?
Not yet. I think that's when you look at the bottom end wind limit of 6.5 knots measured at 5 meters off the water. That's probably 7.2 or 7.3 knots of wind speed at our masthead. That's a very low wind weight. That's a very low wind speed. And so you know that to achieve that, the foil that gets you going there isn't going to be very good in 13 knots of wind speed. And so there will be a very distinct crossover in foils. But if you're sailing around in that minimum wind speeds and the race is happening and your competition is up on the foil and you're not, well, it's going to be a pretty short day because they're going to be, you could conceive a situation that if you can't fly in that minimum wind speed, you'll get lapped on the race course by the other boat over the course of the time limit.
From attempts to limit the windage to the aerodynamics studies, the Cup has come a long way, and you can count on a partner like Airbus. What's your feeling about?
Airbus has been incredible. Airbus is when we joined forces with Airbus, they were very specific in what they wanted to see and to help us in identifying areas of design that they thought that we should focus on. And having a partner that has experienced the 2017 Cup in the manner that Airbus did, we've been quite fortunate to have their influence on our design. So they're not the leading, Boat Team Partners is the lead design firm with this technological support from Airbus. But yeah, I mean, their logo is we make things fly, and they absolutely do that.
The engines of the boat are, without any doubt, the sails. In terms of sail design, do you think that there are details of what you are developing that in the future could affect the design of the profiles in the world of the one design sailing or the offshore sailing?
Well, the one thing the boat does is it generates a lot of load, and it has an incredible amount of stability at the higher wind speeds, or whenever the boat really is up on the foil. And so the loading that goes through the sails, you can see will transfer down in how sails are designed. The double surface mainsail, I struggle to see that on my cruising boat or on a TP52, simply because it's just going to add cost, and it's really not all that practical in that application. A single surface mainsail does the job just fine, but in other areas you can see certainly in design and the structure of the sails will transfer across the sport.
Coming to the competitive aspects, what will be your role on board?
Well, I've become a grinder. I'm certainly not the strongest, and I think it's one of those things that once we learn what the racing is like, my role on board is to be determined. I have to make sure that if I am providing strategic and tactical input on board, that it is helping us win races, because we know there's stronger grinders inside of our team. So you have to balance that versus what I can actually bring to the boat, because I'm not going to bring the full strength. We're incredibly fortunate to have, Paul Goodison and Andrew Campbell and Dean because these guys are great sailors, and you know, they have proven track records. So, you know, whether I'm there or not, the boat's in good hands.
Which kind of cup do you expect? Will there still room for tactical choices, or due to the incredible hints of speed and the presence of the boundaries on the race course, will it mainly be a question of performance on the water, guaranteed by the strength of the grinders?
Mm. Well, I think, yeah, I mean, more so than ever. And you know, we saw hints of that well, that's what was on display in 2017. You know, what kept the racing close initially was the reaching start and first leg being a downwind leg. You know, inherently the boats were closer, but ultimately, the fastest boat up the second beat, you know, was either extending or passing. And so here with the upwind start, I think you're going to see, you know, the fast boat very quickly open up an insurmountable lead. And so from there it becomes managing the flight of the boat and making sure that more often than not you're going the correct direction for wind speed as much as shift. Wind speed even more so than shift, because the wind speed will make up a lot of wind shift. So, you know, it's a different type of racing for sure.
Going inside of your crew, Dean Barker, Andrew Campbell, Paul Goodison, how are the synergies on board going?
I think they're going really well. I mean, each personality that you just mentioned there is uniquely different. You know, Goody's a great voice on the boat. He helps a lot with the moding of the boat. You know, Dean's a great manager of the situation. You know, he understands with his experience where to be risky and where not to be risky. And Andrew is a very methodical, very detailed oriented sailor. And for his role that he's doing in helping maintain the flight control of the boat, he's the perfect person for the job. And so watching it all develop has been awesome, because you can see the strengths of each one of those. Now we have to put ourselves under some pressure, and we have to go racing, and we have to get into that side of it. But I don't know why I feel this way, but in some ways that feels like that will potentially be the easiest part, because sailing the boat and learning to sail the boat properly is hard. And so when we get into our comfort zones, potentially that'll be a little bit more, you know, what we're used to.
Do you think to know everything about Defiant, or there is some moment in which your boat is still surprising you?
Yeah, no, there's so much to learn. We'll never have enough time to learn everything about Defiant. And so we'll learn as much as we possibly can. And what we learn will inevitably allow us with boat 2 to, once we commission the boat and get into the racing development of the boat, it'll allow us just to pick up where we left off. And that's really what the Mule did for us. When we stepped from the Mule onto Defiant, very quickly you had an impression of where the settings should be and where the cant angles and where everything should, you know, relatively fall inside the settings and the tuning of the boat. And so that'll just be a carryover into boat 2 from Defiant.
On high performance boat like the AC-75, you have to be confident in on everything that's around you and is protecting you. In this regard, your clothing supplier is Hutchinson. I know that there are constant contact between your team and the guys of the development department of Hutchinson. Are you happy with these? Are you happy with the development of the new clothing line?
Yeah, you know, I think, as you rightfully point out, in every area of competitive sport, you're always looking for the most efficient and the best use of your gear and the development of your gear. And, you know, one of the strengths of Heli has, you know, their knowledge of their product, their knowledge of what sailors need. Straight away when the gear comes onto the boat, especially in the early days, because you really don't have a lot of time to develop things. And straight away when the gear came onto the boat, it was at a high level, and that's what you want. From there, their willingness to adapt their product to our needs has been really, really, you'd say, a strength of Helly Hansen as a whole. And it's not just one part of Helly, it's the entire team, from the design to the production to the execution of it. That side of it has been an absolute strength. So we're, as I said at the beginning, we're incredibly fortunate to have them with us.
Talking about protection and so safety, do you think that the job that you are doing, and also the job made by all the other teams regarding the security aspect, is going in the right direction with this high performance boat?
I do. I mean, safety is one of those things. Can you ever really be safe enough? And if anybody ever has a catastrophic accident, well, it'll always be reviewed in hindsight, and you'll figure out ways to get better. And certainly we do everything we possibly can to keep our sailors safe, to keep our shore team safe, and to keep, everybody in the chase boat safe. This boat feels safer than multi-hull did. If this boat turns upside down, you have the cockpits that go longitudinally inside the yacht. And so, much as if your laser was upside down, you poked your head into the cockpit, this would be the same thing. The boat would float upside down, no problem. And, but we carry our spare air. We have knives on us. We have certain safety procedures in place to make sure that, if we're trapped, that you can get out. And we practice that, as hard as practicing it as it is when you get dragged underneath a chase boat and get disoriented in the water, and then have to sort yourself out and get your spare air in your mouth and do those things. You take it on because, in the heat of the moment, you need to be able to put yourself in a calm state and make sure you save your life.
Are you missing, Terry, some standard sailing races, or are you so involved in the cup that you are just focused on your duty?
I am 100% focused on what we're doing. And one of the unique things about this type of America's Cup is that going to work every single day is an unbelievable experience because of what we're learning and actually what we're doing, and the excitement and the adrenaline that this boat creates. When you get done on a day of sailing, it's a massive rush of adrenaline because the boat is so fast and it's exceptionally cool. And yet when we go back to racing on a TP52 or a Melges 24 or Bellamente or whatever it is we choose, the best thing about this type of experience is it also makes you appreciate that racing as well. And so, you could say that, I've never experienced a situation where I haven't been excited to go racing, and we are all dying to go racing. We are all exceptionally bummed that we didn't get the opportunities to race in Italy and in England. And so when we get to that part to go racing, that's going to be awesome. And in a year's and a half time or 2 years time, when we get the opportunity to go back to a 52 or to Bellamente or to another racing program, you'll be equally as excited by that because it will feel new. And that's awesome. So, I'm not really thinking about it. And yet at the same time, you also know that when you get the opportunity to go back and do some more traditional monohull racing, it'll be a really, really fun experience.
Listening your word, it seems that you are really, really fascinated by this kind of experience. But is it correct to say that right now an America's Cup team is more similar to research and development team than to a sailing team?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, we've been fortunate. I've become friends with a gentleman who was the captain of 2 space shuttle missions. And he came in and he spent a couple days with us last year, and he equated a lot of what we're doing to what he did when he was flying the space shuttle. And here's a guy that, he flew the space shuttle. So first of all, you're like, holy cow, is that cool? When he was watching us, I was sitting with him in the chase boat, and he was watching us and watching the mule jump out of the water. He could not believe it. He couldn't contain his excitement. And I thought, come on, Ken, you flew a space shuttle here. I mean, this isn't, but he articulated to the team, exactly what you just said, that there's so much research and development that takes place at the end. By the time the boat actually gets out on the water, it's all funneled its way to that moment. And really the sailors then become the test pilots. And how can you not be excited by that?
If I know well, I know that in a few days' time, the U.S. astronauts will return to fly in the space after a good number of years. So maybe you can have some kind of invitation from them to go flying.
No. We have had one of the other unique experiences that we had being in Pensacola Bay is we had the opportunity to have the Blue Angel pilots come and spend some time with us. And what was exceptionally cool is they took part of our debriefing, and they watched us and they were with us, but they started using some of the tools that we used in our debriefing and their debriefing, which to see the similarities and the crossover between two completely different disciplines gave you a sense that we must be doing something right.
But it's also exciting. Something that let us understand that this is a really, really different game respect to the past.
Yeah, very much so.
So Terry, it was great to have you on Zerogradinord, and it was great to listen your voice telling us something from the other side of the ocean regarding the America's Cup. I know that you have to go sailing because it's morning in Pensacola. And so what about the weather condition of today?
Yeah. Well, actually today I'm sitting in Annapolis, Maryland.
Okay. So.
And our boat is ready to get on a ship. And so today in Pensacola, it's cloudy and rainy. And in Annapolis, it's cloudy and rainy. So no sailing today, but we are looking forward to the opportunity to get back out on the water. I know it's been far too long for all of us, really. So I'm looking forward to that moment.
And Terry, I have to thank you again to the gift that you made to Zerogradinord, and hope to have you again on my social media channel, and have fun with Defiant. And we will wait for the name of the new boat to start to sail in October.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, and. So if you want, maybe there is something that you want to tell to the Italian audience. As you know, we have a big number of followers. Maybe there is something that I have not asked to you and you want to add something.
No, I mean, as a sailor, you can't help but miss the opportunities to go sailing in Porto, which is by far one of our favorite venues, and the Yacht Club Costa Smeralda, which is just, for so many of our sailors, is a bit of a home away from home. So I certainly miss the time to be there. And it's been a hard couple months. And so I think when we're all out crossing tacks and Vasco and I are screaming at each other a little bit more, it'll bring more of a smile to your face than it will anything else, because we'll be back in that situation. So I look forward to racing in Italy again, though, for sure.
Thank you, Terry. And
thank you.
We wait you in Italy, and hope to see you soon on some dock in Italy or all over the world. It doesn't count.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank
Terry.
you. Take care. Bye-bye.